Switch gears now and turn to the war in the Middle East, where U.S. Secretary of State Mr. Antony Blinken is in Israel as part of efforts to secure a sustained and immediate ceasefire in Gaza amid the ongoing conflict. Mr. Blinken met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and War Cabinet. He is expected to meet with other Israeli government officials in the coming hours. The visit comes as UN members discussed a U.S. draft resolution that calls for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza tied to the release of hostages held by Hamas. But that resolution failed as there were only 11 votes in favor, 3 voted against, while 1 country abstained. Russia and China, on the other hand, vetoed the draft resolution. And the U.S., which vetoed the last resolution presented by Algeria, was quick to condemn Russia and China, saying they put politics over progress. However, the Palestinian Authority has some harsh words for the U.S. Secretary of State. He's been quoted as saying his months of Middle East diplomacy have been ineffective and only allowed Israel more time to carry out crimes against Palestinians. We'll get to all of that in just a moment. But in the meantime, Finland has announced it will restart donations to the UN's Agency for Palestinian Refugees. Its Foreign Trade and Development Minister, Valtavio, said Finland will resume funding to the agency, noting the country will continue its support after it improved its risk management practices. UNRWA had come under fire after over 10 countries cut funding to the agency on allegations some of its staff were involved in the October 7th attack. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres insists the agency is the backbone of the humanitarian response in Gaza, and dozens of humanitarian groups have also warned no other organization can replace its crucial role in delivering aid to the Gaza Strip. Now, let's cross over live to Port Harcourt, the River State capital, where international affairs analyst joins us live on the program. Right Honorable Ikonyi Owaji Ibani, thank you indeed for agreeing to speak with us here on Channels TV. Let's begin with the failure of this U.S. draft resolution for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. No thanks to Russia and China, which vetoed the draft resolution. I wonder, Honorable, how are you receiving this breaking development?
You see, welcome to yet another another day in terms of featuring me on this program. For what happened today in the Security Council of the United Nations, you see, is a regular feature in the sense that you see between America, China, and Russia, they use the word, they use whatever issue that is on the table before the Security Council to play political table tennis. Russia will play to America, or America will play to China, and it continues on and on. So what happened today in the Security Council, given the U.S. drafted resolution before the Security Council, is not new, and it should be expected by any follower of the dynamics of the United Nations Security Council. So to my mind, for me, it is not new, because from the onset, if you look at the content of the resolution, you will know that China and Russia will veto that resolution, especially when you look at the phrase or the word imperative of a ceasefire. Imperative of a ceasefire, you also know, and that's exactly what the Russian ambassador to the United Nations actually stressed and criticized. Same thing with China. So it is not new. It's not yes, a novel idea at all as to what happened during the vote.
Yeah, so I mean, we saw a draft of that resolution as released by the U.S. I think about 2 days ago. But for you, I mean, when you say that from that draft, China and Russia was obviously going to veto the resolution, what are the highlights for you in that resolution that was perhaps a red flag for both countries?
I have indicated in my speech, in my response, I have indicated an aspect of that resolution, the word imperative, which does not convey urgency according to China and Russia. The point of departure here between Russia, China on one hand, and America is the urgency for a ceasefire in Gaza. They don't see it because of that language, the imperative, the need for a ceasefire in Gaza is what creates the difference or the chasm between China and Russia on one hand and America on the other hand. Then the next thing, if you go through the content, if you read down, you also find out that America in the draft stated that they are talking of a 6-week window for the ceasefire. And if you talk of the 6 weeks, you are now talking especially during the holy month of the Ramadan for Muslim faithful. So for them, for America, for Russia and China, they are talking of a permanent cessation of hostility or ceasefire, total or complete ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. So these are some of the aspects that they disagreed and decided to veto the draft resolution by the United States of America today.
And of course, we know that the U.S. had vetoed, a draft resolution presented by Algeria some weeks ago about a possible ceasefire. So I mean, in my mind, I'm wondering what has changed.
You know, the truth of the matter is, America has a roadmap in relation to the war between Hamas and Israel. How peace will be achieved, how a total ceasefire, and at what time such could be achieved. You know, America agrees with Israel that Hamas should be rooted out. Hamas should be defeated. And that is why from the beginning, given the previous draft resolutions, America had not supported any immediate ceasefire. Rather, what America supported initially at the earlier stage, humanitarian ceasefire. Humanitarian ceasefire is different from a complete ceasefire when there is hostility on ground, when there is an intense war or battle between both parties. So at this point, America is reviewing. There is a midterm appraisal of the war. The short-term, the midterm, and of course the long-term appraisals of the war is what America is using. It's procedural in warfare. So at this point, after 5 months or thereabout, America has reviewed and has now seen that they should be moving, given the calculation that Israel must have achieved some level of progress in terms of defeating or dislodging the war or battle infrastructure that Hamas has in Gaza, either in the north or in central Gaza, going south of Gaza Strip. So at this point, if America, when Algeria drafted that resolution, America objected to it and vetoed it. And now, after some time, America now said, okay, it is time for the imperative, not a complete ceasefire, or the urgency to have a total ceasefire, imperative for a ceasefire. It means it's also giving some time to ensure that Israel is able to achieve the part of the stated objective, because Israel cannot achieve all the objectives. One of such objectives that Israel cannot achieve is rotting out Hamas completely, because Hamas is an ideology now, and they're in diaspora all over Middle East, even maybe beyond, because they have had friends beyond the Middle East. So for you to defeat an ideology is difficult because it's too abstract to be defeated. But what I am saying here, America has seen weeks of battle. Israel, we have been hearing they have achieved, they have made some progress. So at this point, in considering the suffering, the carnage, the pain, and the trauma children, women are also going through in Gaza. America has come up with this. Unfortunately for China, and in fact, if I will quote the Russian ambassador to United Nations, he clearly stated that what America did today with the draft resolution is, I think, something like a spectacle. That is, he used it in a derogatory sense, whereby you are just trying to deceive for people to see that this is what you are doing, but in actual terms, you go beyond that, it is not. That's if I want to quote the Russian ambassador to the United Nations. That's what he actually said.
We're running out of time, so I need to squeeze in as many questions as possible. I mean, just a moment ago, we're showing images of that all-important meeting between U.S. Secretary of State Mr. Antony Blinken and Israeli Prime Minister Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu. So this visit of the U.S. Secretary, his sixth to the Middle East between October 7th and now, some critics say it has been largely ineffective. What do you say?
Well, that is the language of the Palestinian Authority leader in Mahmoud Abbas. That when Blinken visited, he said that his visit is ineffective. But you cannot rule out subtle diplomacy in a situation like this. What Blinken is doing, the Foreign Secretary of United States, is, you know, in between he made some progress. And if you hear him out at every point he speaks, he is serious about his statement and he chooses his language. And if he has returned for the sixth time to the Middle East, you should know human knowledge. He is doing what he's doing, and there are others who might not agree. But for me to tell you or to express what is actually happening, let me rely on what J.S. Mill said. Do you know what J.S. Mill said about liberty? Because this war between Palestine and Israel is one war that people will continue to think about. J.S. Mill said the real advantage which truth has is that successive generations keep rediscovering it until from favorable circumstance, it escapes persecution. It escapes persecution until it has made such head as to withstand all subsequent attempts to suppress it. Truth is one thing that we should hold on to about this war between Israel and Hamas. Is it right? Is it the truth that Israel is defending itself? If Israel is defending Israel, in no time, even for successive generations, they will know. Was it right for Hamas in demanding for a state, a Palestinian state, to undertake the October 7th massacre as they did? This is a question, one question that successive generations will continue. And if the truth is established today, that truth will continue to stand. Therefore, I will conclude by saying that Blinken, having engaged in subtle diplomacy and have achieved some level of success, leaders from Palestine, leaders in the Middle East should give additional impetus to what Blinken is doing as America's Foreign Secretary of State. He has met with several Middle Eastern leaders, met with the leaders of Qatar, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the Palestinian Authority, and the rest of them. They should be able to come and harness whatever has been achieved before now to ensure that they move forward. Otherwise, if they don't want to move beyond here and Blinken goes back without any concrete agreement or a situation where they are now pushing where they were before forward to achieve peace, to achieve absolute peace, and America decides to stand away a little, you find out that there will be difficulty even in achieving a ceasefire in Gaza. So it is my advice that Middle Eastern leaders, those from Middle East, leaders from Qatar, Egypt, and the rest of them, even Mahmoud Abbas, should be able to embrace what Anthony Blinken is doing.
We are absolutely pressed for time. It's a fine way to anchor our conversation with you. I mean, you have said, you've told us what you think is the truth, but one thing that remains constant is that we keep seeing images and videos of very terrifying conditions, dire conditions, horrific conditions of women and children in the Gaza Strip. And of course, we are already 1/3 gone with the holy month of Ramadan, and we do not have a ceasefire just yet. But we have to keep hope alive. Perhaps something could happen before the end of the holy month of Ramadan. But I want to thank you most kindly, International Affairs Analyst, Right Honorable Ikonye Owaji Ibani. Thank you indeed, live for us in Port Harcourt, the River State capital.
My pleasure.